it just helps me understand upfront what your salary expectations are for the role, so that I can make sure that it's a good fit for us. Hey everyone, I'm here today with Brandon from the Salary Negotiator, and we're going to talk about how to improve your negotiation skills. Brandon, could you share a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. My name is Brandon Bramley, and I'm the founder of the Salary Negotiator. I have a background in strategic negotiations from working in many professional negotiation roles at some large companies like Amazon and a few others, where I've not only led business to business negotiations, but I've also recruited and trained different career professionals. In addition to that, I actually have 10 years of experience in negotiating salaries and currently run the Salary Negotiator, where we purely focus on providing tech professionals with the strategies to negotiate their compensation. We work one-on-one with you to guide you confidently through the job offer negotiation process. That way, we help you actually negotiate correctly and earn the top end of the pay band. We also have self-guided salary negotiation courses to where you can learn our strategies, and we've managed hundreds of successful tech negotiations across various companies where we've really become the leader in this space. But to be candid, I'm honestly happy to be here just to go ahead and talk through some tangible advice that you'll be able to incorporate into your negotiations.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're really excited to have you, Brandon. And basically, for the people watching this, what we're going to be doing today are a few real scenarios of what a negotiation might look like around receiving an offer, at the kind of final stages of receiving the offer. And so, what we'll do in this video is I will role play as a recruiter. So I'll pretend to be a recruiter, and Brandon will pretend to be a candidate applying for a role. And we'll show you a few scenarios of how to handle tough things that come up throughout this process. And often these things are areas that people don't even think to prepare for or don't even think that they need to do ahead of time, but are actually really critical in making sure that you get the fair compensation that you deserve. And so the three scenarios that we'll run through, first off, we'll just talk a little bit about how to answer the salary expectations conversation. This often happens in the beginning of the interview. And then we'll talk about the verbal offer. So, once you receive the verbal offer, how do you actually prepare for that? How do you actually listen thoughtfully, but not make any pitfalls or mistakes? And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about, is my offer good? How do you actually determine once you receive that offer if it's a good offer or not? Anything else you want to share, Brandon, before we jump into the first role play scenario of kind of talking through a salary expectations conversation?
Oh, I think that's great. But to be honest, I mean, the biggest thing to think about when it comes to salary expectations, or at least the way we see it at the salary negotiator, is we strongly believe that you shouldn't share your salary expectations up front. But I believe the reason we're covering this is because you should know that you're going to get this question some part during the interview process, whether it's at the beginning or right when you get an offer. But if you think about it, right, is it's usually too early to share your salary expectations until you learn more about the role, if it's a right fit for you, and you've evaluated the benefits or even the role type or level that you're getting. So the risk that we see by sharing your compensation when they ask that question is the risk is you could accidentally throw out a lower compensation. Maybe you're basing it on your current company that is wildly different than what the new company could pay. And you essentially end up with a compensation that's not as competitive of what they could offer. Or even what we've seen with a lot of the tech companies, especially the larger ones, is you might accidentally down level yourself if that compensation range actually fits into a lower compensation level. So that's kind of one of the risks. And then on the other side of the coin, right, is a lot of people think it's great just to throw out big numbers to see how aggressive they can get and what if that'll drive a bigger offer. But usually it's too soon and too early in the interview phase, and they might be like, shoot, we can't afford them. Maybe we should go in a different route. And then you don't even end up receiving the offer. And then at the end of the day, I mean, if you think about it, right, they're going to know a lot better than you do what they can pay for the role. So usually in these conversations, you're trying to get that information from them rather than sharing your expectations.
For sure, yeah. Well, let's jump into it and we'll kind of see how you would handle it, Brandon. And then yeah, we can talk a little bit more about like what you did and what your strategies were there. And so again, here's how to answer the salary expectations conversation part of your negotiation. So hey Brandon, I'm the recruiter. I work at Z. It's Elon Musk's new company. I'm super excited to be chatting with you and be potentially interviewing for this role. We have a lot of candidates, as you can imagine. Our company is very popular. It just helps me understand upfront what your salary expectations are for the role, so that I can make sure that it's a good fit for us. So would you mind sharing, yeah, what are your salary expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited to work with your team, and I'm excited to get the opportunity to interview. But to be candid, I've honestly been keeping my focus mostly on interviewing for the role and haven't really thought yet what the compensation should be. So I actually don't feel comfortable sharing that information. But I'd really like to understand from you what the base salary range and the total compensation range is looking like. That way I can start to think through that as we go through the interview process.
Totally understand, and yeah, I appreciate you kind of sharing that. And yeah, interviewing is definitely really tough. I'm very familiar. I would love to, I'm happy to share more information, but just would you mind just sharing maybe like really rough ranges of comp? Like it can be super super rough, or just anything would kind of help me um make sure that we're getting you the best comp and make sure that you're getting the best opportunities so we can direct you to the right team. So it honestly would help me get you a better kind of spot and chance at working with us, actually. If you'd be willing to share that, would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I'd prefer if we focus on the value that I'll be able to add to your team and not necessarily what I think the compensation range should be in this role. Because at this point, like I've been focusing on interviewing, so I really don't have a specific number in mind. And I'll be honest, I think your team's trying to know a lot better than I do what value my skill set brings and what compensation you can provide. But I do want it to be obviously a big step forward, both in responsibility and compensation. So once I actually go through the interview process and I have a chance to review your offer as well as the benefit details, I'd be happy to let you know if any concerns at that point in time.
Got it. Yeah, I totally hear you. Just if you don't mind me asking though, I get it. Total compensation is kind of complicated, confusing. Would you at least be willing to kind of just share like base salary expectations? Because I know stocks and stuff can get a lot and things like that, or or at least one component of it might just be really helpful, just like a slight picture of what you're going for. That would, and again, I'm it's your choice. I'm definitely wanting you to make the decision, but it would just really help me like kind of save us time, honestly, with the interview process, because I wouldn't want you to come in and then we kind of have the wrong expectations about the role and things like that. So it would just really help if you could share that. Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, I really look forward to getting through the interview process and getting the offer. But like I mentioned, I really don't feel comfortable sharing that information at this point in time since I've really just been focusing on interviewing. But I'd really love to understand you, what you're thinking for the role, both on a base salary basis and a total compensation basis. That way I can start thinking through that as we go through the interview process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, let me share with you a little bit about our company too. I understand it sounds like yeah, sort of a firm stance there on not wanting to share. I so the base salary for this role is the base salary range for this role is between 100 to $150,000, and then the total comp is between 200 to $250,000 for this particular role. So now that I shared that, I would just really love to hear, yeah, so like does that match your expectations, or is that off from your expectations? Could you just share with me what that, yeah, what that looks like for you?
Yeah, thanks for sharing some insight into the compensation. And to be honest, I mean, still think it's a little early me interviewing to kind of see what the role entails, but I do think maybe if I was towards the top end of that range, it might be acceptable. However, as I stated earlier, obviously I've been putting my focus on interviewing for the role and not necessarily what the compensation could be at this point. So once I actually get a chance to receive your offer, review it with the benefit details to make sure I'm looking at it holistically, then I can let you know if I do have any questions or concerns for some reason. But as I mentioned, I'm super excited to work with your team, and I look forward to getting through the interview process and receiving an offer soon.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. Excited to have you go through the interview process.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so let's pop out of that. I really pushed you hard there, and you didn't budge. I'm going to share a couple things that I noticed, and then I would love for you to share kind of your debrief of that interaction. A couple things that I really appreciated. I was pushing you really hard, and I was kind of like almost pleading with you, and every single time your response had gratitude first. You were saying, "Hey, I'm actually really excited to be working at this company. Like, I'm so excited to be here." And I thought that that was effective because you can get kind of snappy after a while, or just say like start just talking about comp. But I think you were just continue to anchor back onto, hey, like I really want to be here and I really want to be interviewing this company. I liked that you basically, sort of asked me back, like it's like, hey, we want to be on the same page with expectations. So it's like you're like, well, eventually, like, can you share that? Like it's sort of like, uh, staying firm in your position and kind of doing that. And I even tried a psychological tactic of basically like not foot in the door, like a door in the face, I guess, where I was asking you for a big thing, and then I kind of asked you for a small. I was like, well, at least give me the base salary, you know, and you were sort of firm about it. And I think it sounds like you're being uncollaborative, which I was trying to position it as a little bit, but I think ultimately you knew your power, you knew your stake in the conversation. Um, and then I thought at the end, I liked how you just kind of were like, hey, like this generally picture looks kind of good, the right zip code maybe, but like I can't like share more, or I need to go through the interview process to really see what that looks like. And sort of didn't share more when I share the actual numbers. But I'd be curious, Brandon, to hear your voiceover on, how that went for you and any tips or thoughts that emerged from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate all the follow-ups because
Yeah.
it's not always going to be that aggressive, but sometimes it is. But I think the biggest thing is when you think about negotiating and pushing back is it doesn't need to be aggressive. A lot of people have seen negotiation videos and they think it's like a big boardroom or people yelling at each other and being quiet. But to be honest, the best negotiator is going to be when it seems like you're negotiating with a friend and talking to them as a friend. The other thing too is usually when this conversation comes up, it's so early in the interview process and you're going to be working with that recruiter a lot. So you do want to maintain that relationship, but you really should kind of stick to the point of not disclosing those details. And as you've seen, I even kind of called out the elephant in the room that their team should know a lot better than I do what they can pay for the role. So your goal in that conversation, at least the way I was looking at it, is trying to get that data out of them. That way you have a better understanding. And once you actually get the offer and you have a chance to review it holistically and do your compensation research, then you'll be able to go ahead and negotiate it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And one other item I would add too, kind of on your last comment on where you did finally go ahead and disclose some data is one of the big things I highlighted, right? Is kind of what you did first is try to get the base salary details out of me. But when we think about compensation, especially in tech roles, most of them are going to have a base salary. They're going to hopefully have equity, a bonus, and other components. And usually a tactic recruiters do is they try to find out what your base salary is, then they kind of anchor around that. And sometimes they fill in other components or they give you a less base and then highlight that they give you a total compensation that covers that. So make sure that when you're actually asking the recruiter is you're trying to get a range both on base salary and total compensation. And then if they do share a range, in our opinion, they're probably never providing you the true range for the role, but it is okay to usually push towards the top end of that to already set the stage and hopefully get a competitive offer right off the bat. That way, when you do come in to negotiate it, you're already starting from a strong point.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I love that feedback. And yeah, I would be curious. There's one follow-up question on this before we go to the
Mhm.
next scenario.
Cool.
I'd be curious about let's say that I shared a salary range that was far below your expectations. How would you maybe navigate that? Like, let's say I shared something that was, 50 to 100 and your target was 200. Um, yeah, like I'd be curious how you would have navigated that, or just a quick tip on how you might think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call out too, because I would say that's really the only time I would recommend sharing some
Mm,
information, right? Because at the end of the day, you obviously don't want to waste your time and you don't want to waste the recruiter's time. And you're probably not going to accept a role that is significantly lower what you're currently making or what your current career prospects are paying. So if they do providing something that low, I would feel comfortable saying something like, hey, to be candid, I think that's a lot lower than I was expecting and kind of what I'd be looking for in my next role. So to be candid, it would probably have to be in the range of X to X on base salary and then also XX on total compensation. So let me know if you think that's doable or if there's any roles that fit that compensation package for my skill set.
for sure. Yeah. So basically, yeah, there's sort of like a gap
Yeah.
and you may need to pull out from the interview, or it may not be a good fit for you.